Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. Today is Tuesday, October 6th. It's my daughter Lindsay's 21st birthday, so happy birthday. And I am joined here by my partner in crime, Mr. Andrew Hansen, and very excited today to go over which now happens to be a very important Game 4 in the NBA playoffs. So how are you doing this morning, Andrew?
Oh, I'm excited. We got an early morning podcast here. We wanted to try to get some BAM clarity. We don't have it yet, but we are prepared for either scenario, whether BAM plays or he doesn't. And like you said, this is a much more important Game 4 than it looked like it would have been after Game 2 with Miami reeling. But Jimmy Butler took over and got this series back on track from a competitive standpoint. So I'm fired up.
I'll tell you what, man, that was a hell of a performance. Talk about putting a team on your shoulders. Wow.
Yep.
That was incredible. Amazing. And I'll tell you what, I didn't hear anybody saying they were going to play the Heat on the money line for that game. That was a real upset, no doubt about it. So, yeah, it's exciting because, hey, you know, we love basketball. We don't want it to end. So I'd love this to go 7. So, you know, but obviously this now becomes the second most pivotal game because 2-2 and 3-1, as we all know, is like the biggest difference in the world. So, you know, can the Heat muster a challenge again today? You know, a lot of it has to do with Bam. I don't know how the hell they won without him. With he and Dragic out to win that game is sort of amazing. But, you know, hopefully he's back. We're not going to fall into the mistake we made earlier in the week of assuming Bam was going to be back, and, you know, breaking down every meticulous detail and usage with him on the court. So we're going to look at today definitely as really, you know, the only guy that's pivotal. Dragic is out 100%. So the only pivot here is Bam in, is Bam out, and we'll certainly try to discuss that a little bit as we go. So no question about it. All right. Real quickly here before we get started, I want to thank our presenting sponsor. That is BetUS. It's betus.com.pa. I usually never get caught on that one, but sometime, and I'm originally from Pennsylvania, so there's no excuse for me to not .com.pa. But yeah, they're the best. They've been around for over 25 years. I've been a member there 13. They have every bet you can imagine for this NBA Finals this evening, and you know, definitely jump in there. Use the promo code Coach Talk, all one word, no space, and that will get you 125% free match play on your first deposit. So definitely go for it. No doubt, it is a great offer. All right. We have got to look at this game from a couple different perspectives. Let's, first of all, since we just mentioned betus.com.pa, let's look at the line. Have you looked at the line, Mr. Andrew?
I have not.
Okay. You want to put a little wager in here?
Yeah. I'm going to say that Lakers are less of a favorite here. I'm going to say Lakers minus 5.5.
Okay.
And I'm going to say over under of 219.5.
Close on the over under, but believe it or not, I don't know if this means maybe Bam's not going to play, but it's 7.5 for the Lakers, which is a little bit more than I expected. That's the second largest of the 4 games, I believe.
Well, there was the one game that it was up around 9.5 when Bam was out.
Right. But the other ones were like 4.5, 5.5, something like that. So anyway, interesting. So we have even though they came off that stinker of a game, they're minus 7.5, minus 320 on the money line. So you could still make good money if you think Heat can win another one. They're plus 260. Over under is 218.5. You almost nailed it.
Okay.
You just missed by 1. The Lakers implied total 113. The Miami Heat 105.5. So, and these are up to date. We waited until the morning of the game. We usually do it late night the night before, but we wanted to try to get a little bit more news for this game. So I doubt the odds will fluctuate a ton. If you have a side, I would say go for it for sure. All right. What side would you like to talk about first, Andrew? I'll leave it up to you.
Let's start with Miami. I think last time we started on the Lakers side. So let's get right into the Bam in or Bam out scenario.
Correct.
And I did make some minutes projections if Bam plays. So I'll go through those. And I tweaked it a little bit from the last podcast. But assuming Bam plays and his legs are good to go, I've got him at 36 minutes. I've got Crowder at 28. I've got Butler still up at 42 as the guy who's going to get the most minutes. Okay. I've got Hero at 38 and Duncan Robinson at 34. That's the starting five. And then coming off the bench, I've got Nunn at about 20, Iguodala at about 20, and Olynyk down at about 22. Okay. So, Bam's a major X factor. Obviously, if he comes in there and plays 36 minutes, you get the downward impact, most importantly on Olynyk, and then Nunn takes a little bit of a hit as well. So that changes everything. Butler, no matter what with Butler here, I think one of the fun things to talk about from Game 3 was, the lip reading at the end where he was telling the Lakers bench, "You're in trouble."
Yeah.
And, I think with him putting up this type of performance and then having that sort of mentality at the end of the game and continuing to talk about how they can actually win this series, I think he's going to come out extremely aggressive again and try to back it up. And, he's the guy. I'm not going to bet against him. So Butler's going to be a major factor in my lineups on both sites.
I mean, who can blame you? But, I have a couple of thoughts on that. One being, you talk about poking the bear. I mean, that's jamming a stick in the side of the bear.
That's right.
Not that, Butler's sort of immune to all that. I don't know. That kind of controversy and, when all the different stops he's had where there's been issues and everything, none of that seems to faze him very much. So, but my concern is it is going to faze the Lakers. I guarantee you LeBron is pissed, and he, you never want to give the LeBrons and Michael Jordans of the world any excuse to get more pissed. So,
that's right.
And that's a concern, because I look at it this way. My most important stat I gave on the last show, last podcast, I thought was the key, and it was surprising to me. But when I went back and looked at the Heat throughout this past year, when Bam is off the floor, you would think the biggest usage bump would go to the other guys that are filling in the bigs, like Olynyk and all those guys, but it wasn't even close. And I even used these words. I said, when Bam's off the floor, it almost all goes to Butler, and it all becomes on his shoulders. He's in the paint, finishing at the rim. And the most, it goes to show you in DFS, when you talk it through and make sense of it and look at the stats, stick with what you're going to stick with. Because for me, I flat out said, if Bam doesn't play, Butler becomes like the captain, because all of that usage, everything falls on his shoulders. And guess who didn't play Butler at the captain? Me. So I'm going to re-listen to this show and listen to myself say the same thing for the fourth time. Right. But I'm with you on this aspect. I think that if Bam's out, we've seen here that Butler is the main guy to go to, and a great spot for your captain. However, where I'm going to disagree with you, not, just in strategy, if Bam does play and they don't, he shouldn't have restrictions if he does play, because it's upper extremities. Then I think Butler, certainly not as captain, and possibly a fade altogether. And the fact of Bam playing and the fact that he poked the bear in the Lakers, they're going to run some doubles at him. They're going to create a tougher situation, I think. There's no way in hell guys with pride like James and Davis and those guys are going to let one guy single-handedly beat them 2 games in a row. Don't you think?
Well, I think LeBron and AD are going to be motivated. I think they're going to play harder and smarter and better. But I don't think that, Jimmy Butler's comments, that's going to be what drives the Lakers to change their defensive strategy and run more doubles at him, especially if Bam is playing. If they run more doubles at Butler, then all of a sudden Bam is, open in the post to dominate. So I think the entire team is going to be motivated to try to limit Jimmy Butler more and not have him have another 40-point triple-double. But I don't think there's any, I don't think there's any stopping him. He certainly, the odds are he's not going to have another 40-point triple-double, especially if Bam is out there. His usage will take a hit, but there's no way I'm gonna pick Bam over Butler on DraftKings, where Butler's 9.6 and Bam is 9.4. I don't think Bam's going to outscore Butler in terms of fantasy points. On FanDuel, it's a slightly different analysis because there's $1,000 difference.
Right.
And if you're playing LeBron and AD, and then you go Butler, you have to sacrifice on your 2 utility spots. If you get Bam in there, you have a little bit more to play with. But for my primary build, I'm not going to make that pivot even on FanDuel.
It's a showdown slate. And in order to take a showdown slate down, you have to have the top guys. And it is very tough to not include Butler in that group. There's no question about it. So, I completely understand it. I think that, again, especially if Bam's off the floor, limited in some sense, you almost have to plug him in. So, again, some of that depends on if Bam plays or not. We're both in agreement with him. If Bam plays, I love Bam. He's going to have fresh legs, actually, in this game. So I think if he gets ruled in, I'd love to have Bam in my lineup. I think he, has proven in the past statistically when he has an extra day or 2 off, he's even more effective because he's such an energy player. So, what about you? Or if Bam's in, is he somebody that's automatic for you?
No.
No?
Definitely. The one thing I might consider, I'm just playing with it now over on FanDuel, is if you were going to fade anybody to get Bam in there, it'd probably be Anthony Davis. Then you could play with Butler and LeBron and, feel decent about your utility guys.
Yeah.
So that's one approach. But, talking about these stars here and the bounce back, I do think LeBron and AD are going to pick up their games, especially AD, because what a dud that was with getting in foul trouble. And, and LeBron had all the turnovers. And one stat I saw this morning is that the Lakers are 3-0 in this postseason after a loss. And AD has really stepped up. He's averaged 33 points and 9 rebounds.
Yes.
After those losses. And so now we've got that double whammy of Lakers lost and AD had a stinker. So, I think it's likely that he comes out and plays much better and has a big game. So that's why it just is so tough to navigate these 4 stars if Bam plays, because everybody's so motivated.
I know it. Can you give DraftKings and FanDuel a call and tell them that I want to play the top 4 guys?
Yeah, right.
And waive the salary restriction for me?
Exactly. We could set up a new contest where you have to rank the top 4. Not like on FanDuel where you get the 3 bumps in fantasy points, but you do a lineup with 4 guys, so you rank them 1 through 4, and that's the challenge, and then put in two more utility guys after that.
Well, our members, hey, guess what, guys? We're going to give you the core 4, those 4 guys.
Yeah, right.
No, we cannot do that. But, it's it's funny because I was one game off. I had sort of predicted that kind of a game for Davis the game before.
Yep.
And for all the reasons I explained, there's games that he just somewhat takes off and doesn't focus in and hammer it down. And, even though I was one game off, he had that game, and it stung a lot of people. I think when people are building lineups today, he's going to be the first guy of those four that's out for a lot of people just because they're pissed. But I think he's a great play for captain because statistically, for what you said, I won't repeat those, but I looked up the same stuff. His bounce back games are serious. He really has stepped up in those games. And, I see him, being a real catalyst. Lakers know they have to win this one because at 2-2, it's a nightmare for them. Anything could happen. So, I like Davis a lot today. And a lot of that reason is because he's coming off a bad game and he still can dominate inside against this Miami defense. Now, let's go back to where we started with Miami instead of getting on that LA tangent. So we agree with Butler. We sort of disagree with Bam, so we have to see how that flows. But as always, it comes down to that next guy or two in. So I'm very interested to see if Hero, Crowder, or Robinson are in your rotation.
Hero, Crowder, or Robinson? No, not in my primary builds.
Okay.
They would be the secondary builds. So I'll get one lineup out there that has a piece of that trio. Hero and Robinson are kind of leveling off. At least they were in the last game. Robinson got extra minutes, had almost as many shots as Hero. So he finally played well. I do think Hero is likely to outscore Robinson in terms of fantasy points, but he is much more expensive. Crowder's been sort of steady and solid, but again, I've mentioned it in multiple shows. Tough defensive matchup. This is just not the series for him to have a ceiling game. So I think all those guys are more, cash game plays. And if you want to get a more balanced lineup, then those are the guys you can turn to on the Miami side. But I'm still looking a little bit more at the bench guys for Miami because if I'm going to play the stars, I got to get the scrubbed in terms of pricing.
Yeah.
Olynyk is still in play. Most importantly, as a potential captain on DraftKings, because of that low price, you can put him in and get 3 studs in there. But that was really the approach to use in the last 2 games with Bam out. So if Bam is out, obviously Olynyk right back in play as my favorite captain on DraftKings. But if Bam plays, Olynyk is way down on the totem pole. But like I said, I do think he's going to get 20 to 22 minutes. I think he could be an important factor here. And then Nunn for me is the real sleeper. The real GPP guy to look at because he didn't get many shots last game. But if he gets 20 minutes, there's no reason he can't get shots and be the surprise play off that bench.
It could be. And I mean, I felt he was a trap the last game just because of that extra special game he had sort of in garbage-ish time. And it ended up being correct. However, I think he's back in play again because he's in that important role for Spoelstra, which is that guard off the bench, like Hero had been before, and throughout the regular season it had been Dragic. But they have a real, that role for the Heat is important. There's a lot of plays run for that fresh guy coming off the bench. They like using a strong player in that first guard off the bench role, and Nunn is that guy. Now, when you look at the pricing, we're back to that dilemma of you got to totally look at 2 different builds because Nunn is down at 4,200 on DraftKings, but then you go over to FanDuel and he's 10 grand.
Right.
So, it's just he's more than Rondo now.
Yeah.
So I thought was very odd. But So you got to go ahead.
And Olynyk is too. They finally priced him up on FanDuel, so he's up at 10,000 also. Last game he was at 8. They priced up none, but they didn't price up Olynyk. So again, that bench talk for me was really focused on DraftKings because those price tags on FanDuel are much different.
Way different. They really changed things. So if Bam doesn't play, Olynyk's somewhat of a lock for you?
Yeah, on DraftKings for sure. Okay. And FanDuel, and it's tougher over there because he's 10,000.
Right.
I haven't played with that as much yet because I do think Bam will play, but lock and load on DraftKings as my captain. On FanDuel, I'm going to have to work with it.
Okay. And then, Duncan Robinson is tempting. He's 5,000 on DraftKings, and he is only 8,500 on FanDuel. So the pricing to me on both really seemed to put him in play because he seems to be one of the guys stepping up and getting more shots and doing a little bit more with Bam being out. But again, there's that domino effect. If Bam plays, it lessens some of that usage for multiple people. But, I think Duncan Robinson deserves to be considered for that last guy in at that pricing. And I have not played him that much, but, I think that he's showing a little more confidence. And when you give a shooter a little bit of confidence, anything can happen. I think I mentioned on the last pod, he is certainly a kind of guy that can drop, 8 to 10 threes in one game if he gets hot. And the Lakers had done a pretty darn good job guarding him throughout this series. But I think what happened is with the different rotations and Butler going off, he was able to get some better looks. So if that remains the same, he's in strong consideration for me to finish out my roster.
Yeah, he's got that potential. He's been a little bit inconsistent in terms of his output, and that's what happens sometimes when you get a knockdown shooter like that. If they cover him well and he doesn't get many off, then you've really stifled him, and it's a dud game for him, and he crushes your lineup. But if he gets open, gets hot, and then he gets a few extra minutes, that's the other thing that happened in the last game. He got extra minutes. Hero didn't play quite as much, and none took a hit. And so that's some real volatility between those three guys based on how Duncan Robinson is playing.
Yeah, and I'm going to make both a cash/hybrid lineup, which will, I usually only build one, but I think I'm going to have a second. I think I'm going to play a true GPP today since I've been, messing with some of these GPP kind of guys. And man, Robinson falls strongly into the GPP kind of play because he's a kind of guy that can take down a slate for you, but you hate to have him in that cash game for big dollars if he does have one of those duds where he's not getting the shots up. So, all right, anybody else from the Heat that you want to bring up that is in play at all?
Nope, no one else in play for me.
I'm with you. All right, before we head to the Los Angeles Lakers, how about we hear real quickly from our man with the golden voice from BetUS. Here he is.
Wake up, sports bettors. Sports are in high gear at BetUS.com, so put down the beer and make every sporting event more exciting by putting stakes on the line at BetUS. Earn bragging rights over your friends as you rake in the cash from each week's betting action. But don't settle for any other book. Choose America's favorite sports book with over 25 trusted years in the industry, BetUS. You need a sports book with integrity and longevity, but more importantly, you need a sports book that pays. BetUS has your game with action on football, baseball, basketball, MMA, golf, horse racing, and even esports. No other sportsbook welcomes newcomers like BetUS with their jaw-dropping sign-up bonuses. Sign up now with promo code CoachTalk for 125% sign-up bonus up to $2,000. The best in the biz. Now you have the best book in the business with the best DFS provider in the business, Coach Talk. Create your account to make point spread bets, futures bets, prop bets, entertainment bets, live bets, and more. No other sportsbook is as committed to their members as BetUS. Sign up now and get in on the winning side of the ball.
All right. Let's get it at BetUS with that promo code Coach Talk. All right. One thing I wanted to mention as we dive into the Lakers, this is a fantastic time to come aboard at DFS Coach Talk. We have the best members, the best community, and I say that, and it is true, because we are really working hard together, crushing sports, talking them through. We do a lot of this type of back and forth right in our Discord with a lot of good sports minds. So we're having a blast with it. We only have 1 week remaining on the fall special, and then that goes away. So you still have a chance to jump in there. It runs through the end of the year. And then, we're back to our week, month, and year. You want to talk a little bit about joining?
Yeah, just go to dfscoachtalk.com and select one of those memberships based on the length of time you want to join. And the great thing is, no matter which one you pick, you're going to get access to all of our sports. And what we do is we hand build lineups and we give them out to our members, so you can just plug and play on FanDuel. We give out a cash lineup and a GPP lineup for every slate in all the sports. And then on DraftKings, we give out core plays. When we get to the main slate on Sunday for NFL, we give out the coach's clipboard, which has core plays highlighted and then a bunch of pivots, so you can fill out your roster with different stacks. And members have really liked that. So highly encourage you to jump in and join us. We'd love to have you. When you grab one of those memberships, what we do is we just send you an invitation by email to jump in our Discord. So we'll get you in there in a few minutes and start crushing it together.
Absolutely, and the process is smooth and quick, and you're up and ready to roll. It's been a fantastic couple of weeks here because we've got all the main sports going. So like today, just to give you a quick snapshot, we talked through everything last night in Discord. I posted our step-by-step schedule for today, which we do every day, because we make sure and remind our members, when to jump in Discord, because we're in there at least 30 minutes before lock for every card, because there's a lot of changes that take place. And today's a perfect example. We have 4 MLB games. So, I'll be posting information all day. And then before that main lock, 30 minutes before, we'll be in there for the full FanDuel, the full Yahoo, if you play Yahoo, lineups, both hybrids, so you can use them in cash or GPP. And then in baseball today, with this many games, we'll have the coach's clipboard, just as Andrew mentioned, where you'll get a full group of players with some highlighted core players, which allows you to build out the rest of your roster. And for basketball tonight, we'll go in there 30 minutes before, which is 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Same thing. At that point, we'll know the BAM situation. We'll have our lineup set, same structure, except instead of the coach's clipboard, because it's a one-game showdown, we'll have a core 4. So we've thought every angle of this out. We've worked on it throughout this year just to fine-tune. And our members are loving it, and we'd love to have you join us. So definitely jump in with us for sure. For those that aren't members yet, and you're looking for more updated news, check us out on Twitter. We are posting on there all the time. We're all at DFS Coach Talk. I'm at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. Andrew is at Language Olympic, and Shane is at DET Sports Shane. All right, we're going to switch over now to the Los Angeles Lakers. Simple question for you, because it's been the question in now the 4th game in the finals. Does LeBron and Anthony Davis start your lineup as the 2 anchors?
Yes. I think that's
that
the
didn't
easiest.
Sound as confident. That sounded a little hesitating.
Well, Butler's in there too as an anchor. So it's hard to say that there's only 2 anchors for me. In most of my lineups, we're going to have all 3 of those guys. So from the Lakers side, certainly, I will have them both. I do think they'll both bounce back. The biggest question for me is going to be on FanDuel, which one I go with to score more. Which guy I put higher in that list of the 3 positions where you get the the multiplier.
And I'll mention real quick on DraftKings, LeBron James is 12,000 as captain, 18,000. Davis is 11,400 in the captain spot, 17,100. And on FanDuel, where the prices don't shift when you put them in the different spots, you have LeBron at 16, followed by Davis at 15. So,
and the nice thing about those prices is that they've gone down on DraftKings. LeBron was 13,000. He's down to 12. AD was 12.2. He's down to 11.4. So I'm liking the pricing a little bit more on DraftKings for this.
It was a little ridiculous that last game. I mean, they just went nuts with it where you couldn't stack hardly anybody on there. I'm with you.
Yep. So I like them. I like them both on DraftKings. A lot easier to play them both. But over there on DraftKings, where you have the flexibility and the different calculations for who's your MVP, your captain, Dwight Howard is actually in the captain.
Okay.
And he's the guy that I think will be under-owned and forgotten a little bit because his minutes have been around 14 to 17. Yeah. But this is it. If Bam plays, I think this is finally the game where we get Howard to get at least 20 minutes. And then he's the guy.
You stole my thunder, Andrew.
Oh, really? Oh, well, good. Hey, no, this is good. That means we're on the same page.
Yeah, because I'm with you. I think if Bam plays, my favorite guy on the Lakers is Howard because he's only 8,000 on FanDuel, and he's even less peanuts, 3,800, which gives you all kinds of options on DraftKings. So, man, we're on the same page with that one. But if Bam doesn't play, then it's a different story.
Different story, absolutely. This is only if Bam is playing and starting, and Dwight Howard is in play as a captain on DraftKings.
Darn, Andrew, you are much smarter than you look.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I mean, Howard has some volatility too, and there's no guarantee he's going to get 20 plus minutes. But I think this is the right spot for him to do it. I think that's how the rotations will play out. And I hope people overlook him because of the average minutes he's been playing.
Oh, I think they will. I really do. I think people are going to have short-term memory loss that he was the Joker and Bam stopper in those games. I'm with you.
All right, good. So
unless they listen to this podcast, then the word's out.
Right. So he really sets things up nicely on DraftKings, and because of that price tag on FanDuel, he's in play over there. In terms of the rest of the Lakers, Pope is still in play for me. He's been really solid in terms of these 4K guys on DraftKings. Much more consistent than Danny Green, whose minutes were down last game. Caruso is still really cheap. He's an X factor GPP type that might finally spike with his output because again he's half the price of Rondo on DraftKings. Yeah, so
crazy.
That's an interesting dynamic. And then Kuzma and Markieff Morris, they really stepped up last game, but that's because AD was in foul trouble. And with him off the court, all of a sudden they needed scorers. And so Kuzma and Markieff Morris got more of those shots, and Markieff Morris got hot, so he got more minutes. So I think those two guys are not as attractive to me here in Game 4. I'm not going to really go after those guys unless you have to, like on FanDuel as your final guy in terms of pricing. But, to me...
Dude, this is spooky today.
You with me on that?
That my big takeaway from the Lakers today was Morris and Kuzma are a trap.
Yeah.
That the only reason they both stepped up was because of Davis's foul trouble and lack of efficiency. And I think a ton of people are going to fill out their roster with one of those guys, and I am not going to have either one anywhere. So, man, this could be good. This means this is a takedown game since we're on the same wavelength.
Let's do it. Let's smash it in Game 4.
Amazing. Very good point.
So last guy I'll mention and throw it back to you is Rondo. On DraftKings, it's a little bit easier to fit him in, even though he's 7.2. If you use a cheaper captain, then you can get him in. So I do like him. And on FanDuel, it's tougher, even though he's 9.5 and he's cheaper than guys like Nunn and Olynyk. It's tough to get him in there if you want 3 studs up at the top. So he's a little bit more in play for me on DraftKings.
I guess I don't have anything to say because we've already said. I'm with you, man. I think that all those points are extremely valid, right on the money. I agree completely. I think Rondo and Pope for me have been fine, and they're both fine plays, but they're just a little bit too expensive for me Rondo for sure. I mean, 7,200 on DraftKings, you just can't do it in my opinion. Although I think he's a good player. He's 9.5, which is a little more reasonable on FanDuel. But still, it hampers you wanting to get some of those big studs in. Pope's 9,000 on FanDuel. Where you can consider Pope is on DraftKings at 4,800. He's not the worst play, especially if you're going to fade the duo of Morris and Kuzma like I am. I think it puts him in play a little bit. The only other guy I want to mention that you didn't, I echo everything else you said there, is Caruso's down to 3,600 on DraftKings. And he's sort of been the forgotten guy that we haven't talked about that much. He's only 7,500 on FanDuel. And, that's a dude that plays in that, 23, 24 minutes every game. He has some great games. He has some average games, but he's pretty solid. And I feel more comfortable with him filling out my roster at that price than the aforementioned guys. What do you think?
Yeah, it does come down to the rest of your build on both sites, but his price is attractive on both sites. So he is in play for me.
And, we mentioned in the last game, we both said to fade Danny Green if he was going to be your last guy in because he's playing dinged up. We assumed he'd play. He's not 100%. And that was some of the problem that the Lakers had in that game. They are built this season on Danny Green and Avery Bradley shutting down the perimeter so LeBron and Davis could do what they needed to do defensively. And when you take, Bradley hasn't been there for the entire bubble, and then Green not at 100%, now you're talking about perimeter defense is shaky and guys have to step it up, and that creates that whole, help side issue and people having to help the helper, and, it creates problems. So I'm definitely still staying away from Green. I think playing injured, he's going to have to use every piece of energy he can on the defensive side, and I don't anticipate him playing much of a role on offense.
Agreed.
All right. I think that is the main thing. For me, going into this afternoon, Anthony Davis is my favorite for captain. And, after that, I think a lot of it has to do with the BAM news for those next couple of spots. And then we filter in from there. But I think we've given people a good pool of guys that we recommend. We've thrown out a few traps that I think are going to get more ownership than they should. And that should set us up for a very competitive game. I think we're going to have similar rosters, certainly on the hybrid side, and then, maybe a little bit of a different splash on the GPP side. Because, on the GPP side, if Bam doesn't play and I start my lineup, for example, on DraftKings with $3,200 Olynyk and $3,600 Caruso, then you can do what you need to do with the big boys. So I think that's a good way to look at it as well. But the key factor, Andrew, as always, is, these games are not won 12 hours before they're played. They're won, right before lock. You got to see the news. You got to listen to the coach talk. You got to follow some of the beat writers, even though the beat writers don't have the same scoops as they used to with the bubble. They're still getting secondary information that's usable across the board here. So don't be surprised, too, if you see the Heat play a little bit more zone tonight. I think they're going to try to use that to slow down a little bit of the inside play, which hasn't worked very well. But, that's one piece I think you got to keep an eye on. And I still say, with Bam back, and they can use, if he's back, and they can use that high pick and roll, which I went into in depth last time, it just makes them a completely different game. I mean, they're number one in the NBA in efficiency on the high pick and roll. So they can't really run it the way they want to run it with Olynyk or Myers Leonard or whatever. It's just not the same effectiveness because you don't have that guy that can Superman to the rim and knock down the big dunk. So that's going to be such a huge part of this game as well. But as I said, follow us on Twitter throughout the day. Also, check us out. If you're watching this on YouTube, the big ask every day, and it's even more so today, hit that thumbs up. Take a second to subscribe. If you subscribe, you're automatically on YouTube, you're automatically entered into a contest that we run every month, the month of October. We're only 6 days in. We'll pick the winner on Halloween, and you get a 1 month free membership. A randomizer will pull somebody out that is a subscriber for that, a new subscriber for that month. So please do that and hit that little alert button. For example, if you don't have that, and guys were up late last night looking for this pod, we had made the determination to wait until this morning, the day of the game, to try to get some more player news on Bam. So, if you had that alert button pushed, then you would hear, when this gets posted and wouldn't be searching around and try to find it from there. You can also listen to us everywhere podcasts are heard from the audio side. We're on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, iHeart, Stitcher, everywhere. Take a second if you can on any of those. 5 stars. Comments are great. They help you move up the charts when people are searching. So we really, really appreciate that. And also our charity of choice here is mambaon3.org. That's MAMBAONTHREE.org. It is a fantastic charity that we really heartily ask you to support, that is set up by the Bryan family. All right, sir. I think that is pretty much the whole enchilada for the NBA Game 4 in the finals.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you all for tuning in, and good luck with your lineups tonight.
Absolutely. We look forward to it, and we won't be back tomorrow because it's every other day for the finals, but we will be back the following day to do the same breakout. So we look forward to hearing from you. We're going to have a lot of podcasts this week. Tomorrow we will be here with PGA, however. That's our Wednesday pod. Sort of fired up for that after we got a nice sweat last week, and then we'll have a lot of basketball and football the rest of the week. So definitely join us. Great job today, Andrew. Thanks for breaking out the coffee and getting up nice and early to get this out there to the folks. And we hope this really helps you. Definitely respond to us if you have any questions. Hit us up on Twitter, or you can certainly message us right here in YouTube. So thank you for joining, and we will be back tomorrow and the rest of the week, and we're going to be looking to crush it in DFS.